It's the SKOR North Twins Show.
All right, SKOR North Twins Show. No Mackey, but I do have the sports dad here with me.
Yeah, darn right.
Purple Daily apparently sucked without Phil. That was
only one person. Don't take
that
it
was just
personally.
one person?
It's fun. Yeah, it's just one person.
That helps.
If
That
it had
helps.
been like me and Phil, that person would have said this show sucks without Declan. Like, it's just, there's always going to be one or two, and that's okay. That's okay. You know what? As long as they watch, I don't care how you feel about us, because we love you, and that's what's important.
This is the SKOR North Twins Show. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Twins season officially halfway over. So we're not doing like a full state of the Twins with vibe checks, favorite things, least favorite things. We will probably do that, obviously, next Monday when Phil is back in tow here on the show. But I figured with Sports Dad here and the season being half over, which, my God, baseball season, even though it's 162 games, it's a grind, does fly by.
Yeah, it
Opening
does go
day
by.
and Royce Lewis tearing his quad feels like it happened yesterday, and here we are 50% of the way through the season. And we talked a little about this with Royce, too, on Unchained today. But right now, through 81 games, Judd, the Twins are sitting in a better spot than they were last year, obviously.
Yep.
They have had a weird roller coaster year, but 9 games up, 9 games over 500, I should say. They have a 71% chance to make the playoffs. They're 7 games back of the Guardians, who shockingly lost back-to-back games. I didn't know that was possible there in Cleveland. But they
Royals beat them 2-1.
Yeah, it was a good game. I watched it, about a half of it last night. But a 71% chance to make the playoffs. I guess before we get in maybe some individual things that is working and not working, your grade overall for this season for the Twins. And I know you and I, we had very different types of grades throughout grade school and elementary and high school, and even for a little bit of college with you.
Yeah, unless you did well in school, we didn't have very different grades. I was probably like a C+ student.
Yeah, me too. So
B-
we're in the same. Okay.
C+. Yeah, I don't think we're
C's
going
get
to
degrees. C's get degrees. That's
far.
nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
So what grade, I guess, would you give the Twins here as we're at the halfway point?
I think, it's been a weird year. They got off to
It's
that
hard.
atrocious start, and then they came back, and they've certainly scuffled. I would be very curious to see what would happen right now if they played the Yankees, because the Yankees have gone in the proverbial toilet, and it's baseball, so that's not a complete shock. But anyway, I'm going to give them a very Judd-like B-.
Okay.
Like, I don't think a year ago around this time, I think it was in July, I called for Rocco Baldelli's head.
You did?
I thought the team was lifeless. They weren't playing well. The division, I believe the way I phrased it a year ago was, this division is putting lipstick on a pig. Like, the division was a pig. It was a piece of crap. And the Twins let it, and I said, who cares? I don't care. The division's better. This team is better. It's funny because some of the things we thought were going to be a weakness have actually not been, and some of the things that we probably thought were going to be a strength have not necessarily been. But I think as you play things out, and this team certainly with some of the skids has then come back and shown some resiliency. I would say they're frustrating, but I would also say that I'm not going to dock them huge because they're in a better division. They're in a wild card spot. I'm going to give them a B-.
I'll give them a solid B. I think they're a good team. They're certainly not a great team. It's weird because do you think this team is better than last year's Twins team?
Yes, I do overall. And I mean, I think it makes sense. One, Correa. Carlos Correa a year ago was really good at shortstop, but clearly with the plantar fasciitis had problems at the plate, right? Far more effective. And I do think that there is a case to be made that he, if it was a perfect world, should represent the Twins in the All-Star game. Now, we talked about the plethora of American League shortstops there, right? If you remember, this team got hot in large part, I thought, a year ago because Royce got called up or he came back and he got hurt. But I mean, there's a different feeling when Royce is playing.
Yep.
I like, you know what? Yes, I like this team more now at this point, and I think that they are a better team. They miss certain things. I mean, Sonny Gray being gone hurts for sure. So I'm not going to try and lie about this, but overall, yes, I like this team more.
I thought this time last year that they're going to make the playoffs and probably snap their losing streak, the playoff losing streak. That was the overall goal. Well, that's happened. You won 3 playoff games last year. You're going to be potentially a wild card team. If the season ended today, the Twins are going to the Bronx because Baltimore overtook the Yankees yesterday in the AL East. Yeah. So if the playoffs started today at the 50% mark, you'd be playing a best of 3 in New York, which does not sound pleasant for a lot of Twins fans, and just in general, since the Yankees kicked the Twins' ass in 6 games this year. Cleveland, Baltimore would get the bye. Seattle would play Kansas City. I will say with Boston and Houston turning on, their season here in the month of June, now all of a sudden the Twins are only a game up in the wild card standings. I mean,
it's gotten tight. You're right.
It used to be, even though the Twins have been chasing Cleveland, they've had about a 3 to 4 game cushion because the AL has kind of been putrid this year. The bottom teams have. Well, now you're starting to see some of those middling teams like the Red Sox and Houston catch fire a little bit, and now there's some heat at the bottom of you. So even though the Twins, who will, by the way, play Seattle this weekend, and the Twins played very well against that awesome pitching staff that Seattle has, I would feel a lot better being a 6 seed going against Seattle than the Twins being the 5 going against New York. But I'm someone, too, that just realizes, hey, you can't pick your playoff opponent. At least you can't do it in the baseball. And you're eventually going to have to play a really good team, whether it's to start or in the divisional round, CS. Well, eventually, if you want to be a World Series winner, you're going to have to beat every team to get there. So whether that's the Yankees to start, tough draw, I think they'd play better against Seattle. Regardless, you're going to see a very good team if the Twins make the playoffs.
I will say this. I think there's a distinction as well, Dex. So I think that this Twins team as a whole is better. So there are some guys who aren't here who you definitely miss, like Gray. But if you were to ask me, so let's take your question and sort of rephrase it just a little bit and say, do you think that this is a better playoff series type of team? So now we're talking about pitching being just huge, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what my answer is from a starting pitching standpoint. I mean, Pablo, I guess it depends which Pablo you get. There has certainly been, and there also was last season some inconsistency there. He had that weird stretch in the spring where he didn't pitch great a year ago. But so like if you were to say, okay, best 2 of 3 in the Bronx, is this a better team to match up with based on the Twins pitching? I'd have to think about that because it's not really right.
I don't.
Well, and then you lose one game and you're on the precipice of being knocked off.
Correct. I mean, this was the first time in a very long time going into the playoffs last year. We were debating who starts game 1.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you had 2 horses that had shots. Sonny Gray was the runner-up in Cy Young voting last year. He started game 2.
Yeah.
Remember that. Like Sonny Gray was technically the second best pitcher in the American League last season, and he's having another phenomenal year at St. Louis. He got game 2. Pablo got game 1, which was interesting. So I think as a playoff team, if Pablo has figured things out, which we talked about this last week, if Pablo is back to being Pablo Lopez, which is a Cy Young contending like pitcher, not maybe the best pitcher, but a Cy Young contending top echelon ace, I feel better. But as of now, like if they went into the Bronx tonight for a best of 3 series, no, I don't feel good.
Well, in game 2
about
still
those
though,
chances.
right? Like game 2 scares you a bit. Then, if Joe Ryan throws his best again, he's good. But a year ago, you felt pretty damn good, and plus you're playing at that time the Blue Jays at home. But you felt pretty good with Pablo followed by Sonny.
Yep.
I don't got that 1-2 punch now. So, but I mean, I do like this team more as I guess the best way to phrase this is as a regular season team, there are things I like more about this club. But when you think about the potential of a short playoff series on the road, starting pitching wise, I'm definitely more afraid.
Yeah. And they need, last year they figured out their bullpen internally in September. They were able to insert Varland. They were able to insert Chris Paddock.
Right.
Duran and Griffin Jacks were obviously their top 2 arms there. Brock Stewart was healthy, and hopefully he's throwing some bullpens now. It looks like he's hopefully on the precipice of maybe getting back here by the end of the first half, or maybe at the very least, or at the very worst, he's back at the second half of the season. They figured out those bullpen problems, which baseball is based in playoffs about pitching and power pitching. Like the Bomba squad was fun. That team got ran out the door because they couldn't pitch because they had no answer in game 2 and they threw out an Uber driver.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't throw out the that made no sense to me. But so in the bullpen though, to your point, I think the Twins are fine there because I think they're going to replicate exactly what they did last year.
Yeah.
I don't think Chris Paddock's going to be in the rotation, assuming he's healthy, okay? And that he's gotten through his arm fatigue that he's currently on the IL with. I can almost guarantee you that Chris Paddock is going to be in the bullpen come the fall, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And if Varland is pitching at all, and this is why I just want to abort this trying to have him start. He's getting roughed up. I don't think it's doing anyone any good. I would put him in the bullpen immediately to prepare him for that. Because I just think that's where he's. But I mean, if you get 2023 playoff Varland, 2023 bullpen Paddock, you're pretty good there, right?
Yeah.
Jax, I mean, let's assume Duran's had a weird year. I wouldn't call it a terrible year. Like it hasn't been a disaster. Year. His velocity is definitely down. But if you got Duran, you got Jax, you got Paddock, you got Varland. To your point, you got Brock Stewart. I think your bullpen could be fine.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk things that aren't working. Let's kind of continue down this path. What are things in your mind that are not working for the Twins so far in 2024?
3 weeks ago, I would have said Byron Buxton's bat, but he's been tearing it up, awesome. Which is great to see. He's so much fun. The power is back. He looks to me, knock on wood for now, like he's healthy. Or as healthy as that knee is possibly going to get. I would say one thing that is not working. Well, there's a few, but I'm going to go with, and it's not a huge thing, but everyone who started in that game against the D-backs yesterday, in which the Twins scored, 13 runs? Yeah. Everyone had hits aside from an 0 for 5 from Kyle Farmer. And I know that they love him, and he's certainly not killing them, but I think he's hitting 189 now. And I just wonder if there is a better use there. But I do think that, Pablo's been up and down. Certainly Carlos Santana got off to a brutal start, but he's come back nicely. Mm-hmm. Castro has been phenomenal. So I think a lot more things are probably working than not. The bullpen also is a concern right now in some ways, but again, I think that can be rectified. I think that can be fixed. That doesn't concern me nearly as much for the playoffs as who starts the games in the playoffs.
And look, Kyle Farmer has played better over the last 2 months, sporadically, I will say. It's not like he's playing every day. There was stretches where he was playing once a week. And over the last 36 games, Kyle Farmer has a 726 OPS, slightly above at league average. Right. He hasn't been, to your point, the 180 hitter that he looks like right now because of the horrible start he got on. Do I think Kyle Farmer's roster spot could be replaced? Yeah. And I wouldn't argue in favor of keeping a guy around just because he is now league average over the last 2 months. That would be silly.
Right.
Very silly.
Yes. Exactly right.
I got a lawnmower.
Oh, is that a lawnmower?
Can you hear that?
Yeah, yes. It's not bad though.
It's not bad.
I've got trains. I've got trains going by. I've had roof replacement across the street this week, so I'm in no position to be criticizing the ambient sound from the Goff household area.
Well, let's also talk about what's working. So what's working for the Twins here?
To go back to that question, though, what do you think? Like as a guy who has gone to a ton of the Access and Baldelli and home games, what would be your main thing about like what you thought might work and is not working?
I know they love the Platoon, and I understand the logic, but they also they pinch hit more than almost any team in baseball, and it rarely works.
Yes.
I get it, what the numbers say, and there's data there that is going to support that. But is it really worth taking the bat away from a good lefty because you have a righty coming in, or vice versa? Like, is it really? Have you gone too far into that approach? And Kyle Farmer is an option. Okay, so like this is exactly perfect example. Kyle Farmer is an option off the bench. Yes, he's been better as of late. Better as in he's been league average. Would you feel better about a legit bat coming off? Would you feel better if Brooks Lee was here, even though he's not playing every day and there's not really a vacancy for him to play right now every day? Would I feel better about a hot prospect who is ripping the cover off the ball in the minors or going to get a legit bat even at the trade deadline that's a veteran that can hit? Yes, I would feel a lot better than that instead of having, Kyle Farmer step up there.
Yes.
Manny Margot's been their lefty slayer. Manny Margot has a role on this team. He
Right.
100% has a good role on this team. But I think they've leaned a little too far into the platooning. I get the logic. I understand the reasoning. I have sat down with Rocco and really understood the X's and O's of that. And I don't think he's wrong with how he's approaching some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think you are too far into the approach of lefty versus righty.
Mm-hmm. And that is the entire organization too, right?
Yeah, it's
like
it's
that's just not a
philosophical
Baldelli thing. That's like from okay.
That's a
yeah,
philosophical thing.
I would agree, and it's weird because at times they seem to be almost a slave to that mentality. And with the amount too, despite the fact that when a pitcher comes in, he has to face 3 hitters. With the amount of pitchers that we now see used too, sometimes it's just going to be a short-term thing, right?
Yeah.
And so then the guy that you pinch hit for to get the matchup that you wanted is now in the game. He comes back up, and guess what? It's a different pitcher. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. That's a good one.
Let's talk what's working for the Twins in 2024. I'll start here. I think your star power in Correa and Royce Lewis. I know Royce missed a good chunk. Looks like Carlos Correa dodged a bullet with not having a wrist fracture there.
Yep.
But your star power, your star players, your offensive star players in Correa and Royce Lewis, who are undoubtedly your best 2 hitters and most dangerous hitters at the plate, when they have played, they have been worth the investment tenfold. Like Royce Lewis becoming a stop and watch player. Carlos Correa has always been a good hitter. He's never been a great. I would never classify Carlos Correa as a dangerous great hitter, but he can go up there and take legitimate professional at bats, and you feel a lot better with him in a high leverage situation than when Max Kepler or someone else steps up to the plate. So I think the stars in Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa, Buck as of late has been really good. Yeah. I'm not counting on that production to be replicated over the course of the next 3 months, but Correa and Royce Lewis, you can't have those guys going through slumps and ineffective play. And for the most part, when those guys have been on the field, they have been delivering for the Twins at the plate.
Yes, and I would call Correa just the ultimate professional.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is what you're going to get. And I will go back to this. Him producing at the plate is great. And for his salary, he needs to. Like, I don't think that there's he's really good in the field, so don't be concerned about the plate. His salary calls for him to be a really outstanding overall player. But with that being said, I think that none of us should take for granted how good that guy is at shortstop. Like, how many plays, does he make? How many runs does he save? How many times do we take it for granted that he makes a play that 10 years ago, dude, never got made, by a shortstop here? He makes the difficult look almost routine at that position, which to me is phenomenal. I can't imagine what the potential ERA impact is from 2 guys, Correa at short and Buxton in the outfield, because Byron Buxton too, it's weird. The knee or whatever definitely affects him at times, but I think that he's proven in playing through this, Declan, that he is also just a savvy, smart outfielder.
Yeah.
Because the speed's still there at times. I'm not saying it's not. And yes, that helps him. But his positioning and ability to go get balls too, to me, goes beyond athletic ability. I think he's incredibly smart out there. And again, how many plays don't get made if that is take your pick, Castro out there.
I've talked to Rocco a lot about fielding, and we talked about first base. This was like a couple months ago. But, everyone that's on a big league roster is pretty damn athletic, right? Like they're in the top 1.1% of athletes in the game that are everyday major league players, right? And everyone's athletic. But the thing that kind of separates really good fielders from just athleticism and being a good fielder is what Rocco describes as instincts. Like what are your instincts?
Yep.
To your point there about Buck, just instinctual, he knows exactly where to be on the field. We like to talk about first base being, just put someone at first. They'll catch the ball.
Not true.
Instincts. There are, how many times did the Twins, run out Luis Ariz at first, Donovan Solano at first, Miranda at first.
Miranda at first was a disaster.
And Carlos Santana's glove probably kept him from also not being completely jettisoned from this roster, even when he got off to the slow start, because he's an above average first baseman and a really good instinctual first baseman.
Yes.
Those are the things that separate the good fielders. Everyone in the big leagues is athletic, pretty much, man. Like it outside of pitchers.
Right.
But everyone's pretty damn athletic. And the instincts are what kind of separate the athleticism from also reaching your potential as a fielder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I guess I call it baseball smarts, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's positioning, it's awareness. It's probably, or it's not probably, it is. It's things like routes to balls, right?
Yep.
Like watch Buxton's routes. He goes, in my opinion, he pursues fly balls like a wide receiver runs a route to catch a pass. There's no circuitous BS, right? Like he knows exactly what and yes, the fact that he is very fast helps. I'm not trying to downplay that. But it's more than that, because he's definitely not as fast as he was 5 years ago. He's got a bad knee. But yeah, I think that this team, we probably don't talk about enough at certain positions. One of the reasons why this team has gotten to a pretty good place right now is because of the fielding of certain guys.
Yeah.
And I'll just go back. I mean, I think Correa, I would love to see, if you could quantify this, I would love to see Correa put up against other shortstops in the past 15 years, especially Twins, to see like what plays does he make. And we just go like, oh yeah, of course he did. He's Correa, compared to what plays, and ended up as singles or errors or things like that.
Yeah. And the Twins have had really good defensive base shortstops. They have, but some of them have just been sieves. They're batting ninth offensively.
And target field, they haven't really though, right? Like I feel like at the Dome they did for sure. I mean, Gagne, who we've talked about, was incredible, but I feel like target field has had a very murky. It's been first of all, a revolving door. But I don't feel like since they moved, they have had a real consistent run of like great defensive or above average, I guess, defensive shortstops. Do you?
I mean, I'm not putting him in the same class by any means, but like Pedro Flormon was a really good defensive shortstop. He just couldn't hit worth bleep.
And so he lost his job.
Yeah. Andrelton Simmons, who had his own issues off the field and in that clubhouse, was a really good defensive shortstop.
Yes. That is.
But I mean, to your point, they've ran out. Polanco, I don't think ever was a great shortstop. They had to move him to second. Dozier, same thing happened. Plouffe, same thing happened.
Yep.
They've definitely had some questionable play at short there before. But Correa is the best. I'm not denying that. But I do think they've had good defensive shortstops. But what Correa is also to give you at the plate just makes it even more impressive to look at.
Thank God he didn't sign with the Mets, because it would have hurt the Twins and been a disaster. Can you imagine that guy playing third base for the Mets? Now the Mets have come back again. It's weird.
Grimace.
The Yankees were doing great, and they're struggling now. And the Mets were awful, and now, yes, since the whole
Grimace
thing. Did you see the dude during the rain delay who was like hoisted up or something and was slamming beers in a Grimace outfit? Which, by the way, looked really, really weird and creepy. But, yeah, I think if Correa had played third, the tabloids and stuff, he would have been under constant scrutiny. This is a pretty good place to play if you just want to sort of chill, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we don't 100%. Rip you a lot. We don't bug you a lot. I think he's appreciated here. But I think this is a pretty good place to play if you just sort of want to be a professional on a decent team, but just chill as well.
Absolutely. Last words, Jed, before we wrap up here on the SKOR North Twins Show.
Yeah, are you more concerned about Julian or Kirilloff as it pertains to the Twins? Because I mean, I know the Kirilloff's thing is sort of odd, and so you're probably more concerned about him. But as it pertains to who you think can have the most impact if they get their act together, Julian or Kirilloff?
Well, Julian has a better path to make an impact with this team than Kirilloff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. I know, Dukes has reported the whole swing change stuff, and no doubt, I think some of that is true, but I think most of that is Alex. I think it's Kirilloff also getting inside of his own head and making those own adjustments than it is the Twins saying you need to swing like this. I don't really necessarily buy all that, and at this point,
it's a shame.
Yeah, but
I mean, that guy could be so good, but I'm also not completely convinced that the wrist or something is not going to just be a problem. It's got to be so frustrating when you spend your life, and I mean that kid came up. He is a pure hitter, right? Like he is special, and it's got to be so difficult when your body gets like altered, and so now there's like a weird pain or you can't do things, and you've got to adjust. I think that it certainly has happened before, and I think that certainly some people do. But I don't know that, like, all of a sudden you got this wrist problem, and now he's got a back problem. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. But Julian, I think if you can get Julian turned around, I'm not completely convinced he does not end up as a trade chip at some point in time, too. If he gets turned around. Not
agreed.
Right now.
Yeah, I'm done with the whole Kirilloff thing. And to be honest,
you get very frustrated by him. His first base gaff last year.
And I'm not poo-pooing you. People act like Alex Kirilloff comes up here and had like a Rod Carew-like swing. Okay, he has a nice swing. It's not a stop and watch swing at its peak. It hasn't ever been.
Oh no. Well, no, but I'll disagree a little bit. I think we saw the potential. He's not near. No, I mean it didn't materialize, but I think we saw that potential. Like you look at some guys, their swings, their abilities, right, and you're like, that guy could someday be special. I think that's it. But I mean, he has. If you can't mentally go down that path, and it appears he can't, it doesn't matter.
Agreed.
So I just think the Twins have some good young talent coming for sure, and I think that they've got some interesting decisions to make. But it'll be a shame if Kirilloff never even comes close to approaching what at least looked possible. That's the best way to put it. Because I'm not saying you're right. He never reached it, or has not certainly come close as of today.
Prospects, man. That's why I don't fall in love with prospects. Don't fall in love with prospects because
David Festa, I'm in love.
Yeah, most of them are just never going to live up to.
He weighs like comp. What? He weighs less than you.
Yeah, he is. He's just me plus 7-8 inches tall. That's
I think he's skinnier than you.
He
like
might be.
I think he looks thinner. Like I think if Declan and Festa stood side by side sideways, okay, I think Festa looks like he is. Like I could see you from the side, I think, more than Festa.
When I meet him in the clubhouse next week, I'll ask for a side-by-side photo op from Pete. Hey, can you guys take a photo side-by-side? Let's see the differences in the human physique here.
I love it. We'll throw it up on the show. It'll be fantastic. We'll put it right up there.
SKOR North Twins Show. Hit the like button, hit subscribe button. Expect some extra innings content sprinkled in. Twins home next week for Detroit and Houston. So they've been wrapping up this long road trip. Off on Monday. State of the Twins will return on Monday too. Trevor Plouffe Tuesdays as well. So plenty of great stuff. Hit the like button, subscribe button. We'll be talking at you later.